In this video, I'll be covering the theory of parajumbles and also solve a parajumble live with you. If you know me and if you have seen my previous strategy videos, you would know that I'm not a very big fan of doing a lot of theory for parajumbles. I had said before as well that you just practice parajumbles from the mocks and that is sufficient practice. You do not need much. Of course, there are a lot of books covering a lot of theory and parajumbles. You can read that if you want to, but I believe sincerely this video is the only thing that you would need to cover all the theory for parajumbles. So now coming to the theory of parajumbles, for any parajumble that you solve, you need to look for three things. First is the opening sentence, second are the mandatory pairs, and third is the closing sentence. So first, I think opening sentence, the name signifies what it means. Closing sentence as well, the name signifies what it means. And for mandatory pairs, so these are any particular pair of sentences that have to come together. That is one after the other in a sentence. So now how to figure these out? For opening sentence, you need to look for a sentence that introduces a particular concept for the rest of the sentences, or something which has a definition or something like that. Or maybe it might be some sentence where a proper noun is used. It might happen for the other sentences, he, she, they, it, these kind of words are being used, and there's only one sentence where a proper noun is used, and that will be the opening sentence because that is continuing the tone, because the concept was introduced in the form of a proper noun first, and after that you are referring to it in the third person. So those kind of sentences will be the opening sentences. Mandatory pairs, you will try to figure it out. Usually they will be connected sentences, might be connected with a conjunction, suppose and, in addition to, firstly, secondly kind of sentences. It can be contradicting sentences as well, with words starting with like however, but, instead of, despite of. These kind of things can also happen. So either it will be an addition to the previous sentence using some conjunctions, or it will be a contradiction to the previous sentence. And if you can figure that out, probably it will be a mandatory pair. Look out for, every time you have a conjunction, look out which sentence can precede that conjunction. That will make things very easy to figure out those mandatory pairs. And now finally the closing sentence. Usually I find it very difficult to find that closing sentence. Usually it's the opening sentence and the mandatory pairs for me, and the remaining one becomes the closing sentence. But in case it might be very simple parajumble as well. For example, it might mention clearly in conclusion or finally, we can say some, if this kind of word is used, you know that this is going to be a closing sentence. But I have always found it very difficult to find the right closing sentence in parajumbles. So with this knowledge, let's jump on to a cat parajumble. This is a parajumble taken from CAT 2019, and you can see this particular parajumble, and based on the knowledge that you have so far, you can try to solve it before I solve it with you. And let's start. To the uninitiated listener, atonal music can sound like chaotic random noise. Okay, this can be an opening sentence. Atonality is the condition of music in which the constraints do not. This is kind of a definition. You see, this is a kind of a definition. This might be the opening sentence. Okay, you cannot always say that the definition is going to be the opening sentence, but this can be. This is a very strong contender. So after that, after you realize the amount of knowledge, skill, and technical expertise required to compose or perform it, your time may change, so to speak. Okay, and you see, to compose or perform it, there's a third person thing mentioned over here. So you most probably, this is not going to be the opening sentence, and I think in all likelihood this is certainly not going to be the opening sentence. It has to be referred somewhere before. However, my favorite word, whenever conjunction is used, that parajumble becomes very easy. Atonality is one of the most, again, atonality is introduced here, but atonality, the definition is in the second sentence itself. So definitely, second one is going to be the opening sentence. That is very easy. That's the definition of atonality, and that is going to be there. Now come to the however part, the conjunction, because now it might become very easy to solve, because I can find a mandatory pair probably. However, atonality is one of the most important movements in 20th century music. Okay, after you realize amount of knowledge, skill, expertise required. To the uninitiated listener, atonal music can sound like chaotic random noise. However, atonality is okay. So I think 1 and 4 are a good mandatory pair, because you can see the first one, we are talking something negative about atonality, chaotic, random noise, and then suddenly it turns around in 4. That is, however, atonality is one of the most important movements. I think that is it. One is the speaking negative about it, and then it turns out while it is chaotic random noise, but atonality is one of the most important movement. So yes, 1 and 4 are mandatory pair, and now the only thing remaining is either it will be 2 3 1 4 or it will be 2 1 4 3. We have to figure out where can 3 be placed. So let's read the third one again. After you realize the amount of knowledge, skill, technical expertise required to compose or perform it, your tune may change, so to speak. Perform it. Okay, if it's 2 3 1 4, then it is a tonality, and then you'll realize, after you realize, compose or perform it. And if it is 2 1 4 3, it is to the after, coming after. A tonality is one of the most important movements. Okay, perform it. Okay, I think this is figured out. This will be 2 1 4 3, and I'll explain the reason why it's 2 1 4 3 now. So two reasons that I can see over here, because the first part is, if you see this, to compose or perform it, it has to refer to something, to performing something. You do not if it comes after 2, you do not perform atonality. What you have to perform is atonal music, and that can only come after 1 4 when you are talking about atonal music. In 2, we have only introduced the concept of atonality. It could have come, but this is one point, that it has to represent something in the previous sentence, and that is atonal music, because we are having a verb before it. And after that, there is another concept, and this can be a theory for you as well, so you can that I missed in the explaining in the previous part. And that is, whenever you have these parajumbles, there's a particular flow that you adapt to. For example, you can see, if it is 2 3 1 4, what will happen? 2 is a concept, so just leave that around. 3, we are talking about a positive aspect. After you realize the kind of skill required, you will appreciate it, and so on, whatever it is. It's a positive tone. 1 is a negative tone. You can see it is chaotic, this and this. And 4 again becomes pretty positive, that however, if you understand it, then, and so on. So you can see positive, negative, positive. Usually parajumbles or any paragraph does not flow like this. And now if you place it like 2 1 4 3, 1, it's talking about suddenly negative, 4, it becomes positive, and 3 is adding on to that particular point, adding to the point that was mentioned in 4. 4 was positive, 3 is positive as well. So this is also one way to figure out. Always try to keep the flow very similar. If it's negative, try to bring all the negative sentences together, see if it makes sense. If there's a positive tone to it, bring all the sentences with positive tone together and try to see if that makes sense. Usually that will be the correct answer. So that is about it, short, crisp. I do not want to extend this. Only thing that you need to do for parajumbles is keep practicing more and more parajumbles from the mocks that you're attempting, from the previous year CAT papers, and that is it. Once you solve more, you do not need any theory or even this video for solving it. Just go solve parajumbles, keep practicing, you will improve.